Okay, so get this. Yesterday, SpaceX launched a brand new spacecraft nobody really seen before, raised $25 billion in bonds the same morning, and somehow the most important thing they need to do for Artemis still hasn't happened.
That's quite a Tuesday.
Right? Like they had a whole new vehicle, Starfall, and disc-shaped cargo capsule, flew on a Falcon 9 out of the Cape, and simultaneously priced a $25 billion bond sale that drew nearly $80 billion in orders. CNBC confirmed the size.
Walk me through why that bond number matters for Artemis. Because on the surface, those look like completely unrelated stories.
That's exactly the thread we're pulling today.
Because the propellant transfer demo, the ship-to-ship refueling test that Starship HLS actually depends on, was supposed to be done by summer 2025. Wikipedia is still listed as optimistically scheduled for 2026. No confirmed launch date.
Optimistically. That word is doing a lot of work.
It is, and Congress just advanced a House CJS bill with a $2.28 billion HLS line, but that money can't move until a design certification review clears, and that review is gated on the demo.
So we've got a hardware problem, a money problem, and, plot twist, a company that just IPO'd, piled on $25 billion in fresh debt, and is burning cash on an AI division.
All three are connected. That's the argument we're going to pressure test.
We start with the propellant demo itself, why it's orders of magnitude harder than anything Starship has flown. First segment right now. Okay, so back in October 2024, NASA said the ship-to-ship propellant transfer campaign was supposed to kick off around March 2025 and wrap up by summer. March 2025, summer 2025. Done.
And where are we?
Mid-2026. Wikipedia puts it at optimistically scheduled for 2026. No launch date, no design certification review, nothing.
Walk me through what was supposed to happen, like specifically.
Right, so 2 Starships. One launches first, parks in low Earth orbit. The second launches 3 to 4 weeks later, chases it down, autonomously docks, and transfers propellant. That was supposed to be a 2025 checkmark.
And nobody's done this before?
Nobody's done this before. That's the thing people keep glossing over. Flight 3 back in March 2024 moved roughly 10 metric tons of liquid oxygen between tanks on the same vehicle.
Right.
Same vehicle. That's just plumbing.
So intertank transfer and ship-to-ship are fundamentally different problems.
Completely different animal. You've got 2 independently flying vehicles trying to dock in microgravity and then push cryogenic liquid through lines without the whole thing going sideways. Slosh dynamics, ullage management, pump cavitation risks.
Right, you can't just settle the propellant the same way you would on the ground.
Exactly. Gravity's not doing the work anymore. And NASA's own people flagged in April 2024 that SpaceX needed to fully understand the slosh dynamics before attempting ship-to-ship. That was the point of intermediate flights.
So the GAO already told Congress Artemis 3 is unlikely before 2027. The propellant demo is the long pole.
The long pole. And here's the math that actually stings. This demo has to prove the procedure works once, just once, before NASA will certify an architecture that has to work, per SpaceX's own HLS bid documents, something like 14 tanker flights in sequence for a single lunar mission.
14. Each one has to dock, transfer, and depart cleanly.
Yeah. And they haven't done it once yet. So you've got a 15-month slip on a demo that unlocks everything downstream, which raises the actual hard question.
Why is it still slipping?
That's exactly where we need to go. The schedule failure is one thing. The physics of what they're trying to pull off is another story entirely. So the physics side, because, Blake, this is where people hand-wave the hardest. Walk me through it. Okay, so the big nasty problem is ullage. In zero gravity, your propellant doesn't sit at the bottom of the tank like it does on Earth. It floats around, stratifies, bubbles form. Those bubbles hit a feed line or a pump, and you get cavitation. Bad day.
And that's not something you just model your way out of.
You can model it, but SpaceX's own updates page says they've been flying radio frequency propellant gauging sensors on every recent Starship flight specifically to characterize this behavior in actual microgravity, which means the models aren't enough. They need real flight data.
And they've got that data from single vehicle tests. But this demo is two separate ships.
Yeah.
A target Starship waits in low Earth orbit, the chaser launches 3 to 4 weeks later, autonomously docks, then transfers.
Right, and Wikipedia's breakdown of the mission profile makes that gap explicit. It's not just docking, it's autonomous rendezvous after weeks apart, then threading cryogenic propellant through vacuum-jacketed lines across a live interface between two vehicles. That's a different animal.
So let me pressure test the scale question. SpaceX's own HLS bid documentation uses 14 tanker flights as the conservative figure. NASA Inspector General reporting puts other estimates at 15, even into the high teens.
And every one of those flights has to dock, transfer, and clear out cleanly. Miss one, and depending on how far into the campaign you are, your propellant in the depot is already boiling off while you wait for a stand-down to end.
Wow.
There's no margin.
So the demo isn't just proving the procedure works.
It has to prove it well enough that NASA certifies an architecture that has to work a dozen or more times in sequence. One data point. That's what's on the table.
And the SpaceX updates page says both tests, the long-duration flight and the transfer demo, are still targeted for 2026. No hard dates.
Targeted. Love that word.
Very load-bearing.
And look, SpaceX has Dragon Eye navigation sensors going on Starship, which have real heritage from dozens of ISS runs. That's not nothing. But heritage in a 13-ton Dragon versus an uncrewed Starship the size of a skyscraper? Different problem set.
Where does the actual data come from on whether this works?
That's the honest answer. We don't have it yet. That's the whole point of the demo.
Speaking of what SpaceX does have flying, they just put Starfall in orbit yesterday.
A completely different kind of problem, which is worth being precise about. That's the next thing we need to look at.
Okay, so shifting gears, Starfall flew yesterday. Big disc-shaped thing. It looks like a giant hockey puck. 3.1 meters wide, launched on a Falcon 9 from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral at 6:53 a.m. Successful flight. According to Spaceflight Now, it has no main propulsion, nitrogen cold gas thrusters for attitude control only, so the launch vehicle does the deorbit work.
Walk me through what that actually proves for HLS, because I think some folks are going to see SpaceX hardware flew yesterday and assume it connects to Artemis somehow.
Yeah, that's the trap. It proves SpaceX can fly a heat shield and stick a landing in the Pacific. That's real. The reentry tech is maturing. But Starfall has zero propellant transfer capability. It's not a tanker, it's not a depot, it doesn't even have a main engine.
So the connection to HLS is...
Basically indirect. You're building confidence in SpaceX's reentry and recovery operations. Fine. But the ship-to-ship propellant demo, which is the actual HLS milestone, that's Starship to Starship cryogenic LOX transfer in orbit. Starfall is a commercial product aimed at pharmaceutical manufacturers and microgravity research customers.
Sure. And SpaceX kept this thing almost entirely secret. The specs came not from SpaceX press releases, but from FAA and FCC regulatory filings. They cut the webcast 10 minutes after liftoff.
Super transparent company, as always. But okay, credit where it's due. The heat shield on Starfall is carbon fiber. It jettisons just before splashdown. Recovery vessels pull both pieces out of the Pacific. That's an interesting reentry architecture. The FAA approved 2 demo flights, and this is the first.
So what does this actually tell us about SpaceX's priorities right now?
Honestly, that they are building commercial revenue streams in parallel with the government contract work. Starfall targets orbital manufacturing, point-to-point cargo, markets that have nothing to do with Artemis. Next Big Future called it a low-cost capsule return system. That framing is all about commercial customers.
And that's worth noting because we're about to get into the financial picture, where SpaceX's capital is actually flowing. A company that just did a $25 billion bond sale the day after this launch is telling you something about what it thinks its growth engine is.
And it is not the HLS contract. That's the thread we need to pull on next. Let's pull it.
Sure. So Bloomberg reported today $25 billion in investment-grade bonds, priced this morning, nearly $90 billion in orders. That's the transaction.
Dude, $90 billion in orders for $25 billion in paper? The market is literally throwing money at them.
Right, and walk me through the sequencing, because this matters. June 12th, IPO, $75 billion raised. June 16th, SpaceX exercises the option to acquire Anysphere, Curse's parent, for $60 billion in all stock. June 24th, today, the $25 billion bond sale prices.
12 days. That's 12 days from IPO to debt market. That is a sprint.
CNBC confirmed the proceeds retire a $20 billion bridge loan SpaceX raised in March, effective rate 4.58%, that funded the XAI acquisition. Annual interest drops from roughly $1.8 billion to $1.5 billion. So they are genuinely cutting costs. That part is defensible.
Okay, but here's where I pump the brakes a little. XAI posted a $6.4 billion operating loss last year on $3.2 billion in revenue. That is a cash furnace.
And they are now inside SpaceX, on the same balance sheet as Starlink and the HLS contract.
Which means Starlink, the one that is actually profitable, is subsidizing everything. Grok, X, now Cursor.
S&P flagged the AI division as the riskiest part of the balance sheet when they assigned BBB. Moody's gave them Baa1, both investment grade, but barely.
So now I want to ask the thing nobody's answering. Where does Starship HLS R&D sit inside this capital structure?
That's the question. Congress has $2.28 billion lined up for HLS in the FY 2027 House bill. That money is appropriated, but NASA's design certification review still has to happen before they release further contract funds. And that review is gated on the propellant transfer demo.
Which hasn't happened, so you have government money pointed at the moon and private capital pointed at AI coding assistants.
The $60 billion Anysphere deal is all stock, so it is not a cash drain, but the debt is real. Bloomberg Intelligence's Robert Schiffman said they will need more debt to fund expansion, $80 to $100 billion in total leverage, his estimate.
That is a lot of Falcon 9 launches to service.
And S&P expects negative free cash flow through 2029. So the propellant demo is not just a technical milestone, it is a contract funding unlock. Slip that demo another year, and the HLS cash flow slides with it.
That's the tension. Congressional money is real and waiting. The physics milestone that releases it is not done. And the company collecting the contract is busy becoming an AI conglomerate.
Congress is about to vote on exactly how much to keep betting on that arrangement.
So the Planetary Society ran a solid breakdown of the FY 2027 House CJS bill. The numbers are not subtle. $2.28 billion for HLS, $8.93 billion for exploration overall. That's $1.14 billion above the FY 2026 enacted level. Congress is all in.
And science takes the hit to pay for it. The Science Mission Directorate drops 17% down to $6 billion. The trade-off is explicit. Moon program gets the money, science gets cut.
Right, but here's the problem that $2.28 billion cannot fix. The design certification review NASA requires before releasing further HLS contract funds to SpaceX is still gated on the propellant transfer demo. Money appropriated and money released are two completely different things.
Walk me through the mechanics there. How does that gating actually work?
SpaceX is on a fixed-price, milestone-based contract. NASA only pays after verified milestones. The propellant transfer is a milestone. No demo, no certification review. No certification review, no next contract tranche. The physics is the budget constraint now, not Congress.
So the appropriators did their job. The bill passed on a party line 32 to 28 vote. NASA exploration gets a real bump. Administrator Isaac Men's permanent lunar outpost by 2030 is explicitly endorsed. And then it all hits a woe called Orbital Rendezvous.
Dude, you can't appropriate a successful docking maneuver. That's the whole problem.
And according to Starship's HLS updates page, both the long-duration flight test and the propellant transfer demo are targeted for 2026. But timing depends on how the V3 architecture flight test progresses. That's a lot of dependencies stacked up.
Wikipedia's Starship HLS article is blunt about it all. Neither the demonstration nor the design certification review had occurred as of March 2026, and the demo is still listed as, quote, optimistically scheduled for 2026. Optimistically.
The Senate is expected to act on its own CJS bill this month. The HLS funding line is not going to be controversial there either, so Congress will have done everything Congress can do.
And then we're back to the vehicle. 2 starships, ship-to-ship docking, cryogenic transfer in orbit. All of it has to actually fly. That is the variable, not the politics, not the appropriations.
Which means we need to go on record. Does the demo fly before December 31st? That's exactly where this ends up.
So, Blake, prediction time. Does the ship-to-ship propellant transfer demo fly before December 31st?
Walk me through the math first. Wikipedia's got the demo listed as net late 2026. SpaceX's own updates page says timing is driven by how V3 architecture tests go. S-33 introduced the vacuum-jacketed cryogenic lines the demo needs. That's confirmed. But the demo itself requires 2 Starship launches 3 to 4 weeks apart. Has that ever happened?
That's the thing. It has not once. 2 Starship flights, same window, sequenced. We're talking about achieving something brand new just to run the test.
Right. And each of those flights needs its own FAA launch license. 2 sequential licenses, 3 to 4 weeks apart. That's never been tested either.
Dude, the FAA licensing sequence alone gives me pause. But, okay, here's where I land. SpaceX's flight cadence in 2026 has been faster than any prior year. They've got 2 pads at Starbase now. I think the first launch of the demo pair gets off the ground before year-end. I'm saying yes.
The first launch maybe, but full demo, meaning both vehicles rendezvous and complete the transfer, that's a different question.
Fair. I'm calling the first vehicle up before December 31st. Full transfer cert by end of Q1 2027? That one I'd put at 50-50.
50-50. That's not a prediction, Max. That's a coin flip.
Fine, okay. 60-40. Demo starts before year-end. Full transfer cert slips to Q2 2027 because something in the autonomous rendezvous sequence surprises them. That's my official call.
Mine is cleaner. The demo does not achieve full propellant transfer certification before March 31st, 2027. The FAA 2 license sequencing problem alone adds 8 to 12 weeks of buffer you cannot compress. And if V3 architecture has one more anomaly, the program is already on booster 19 after 18 was destroyed in ground testing. You're into Q3.
Wait, that's actually pretty bearish.
It's the schedule math. SpaceX's own updates page says timing depends on V3 progress. V3 progress has not been linear.
No argument there.
Right.
This prediction goes on the board. Next episode, we check it.
What to watch? Any FAA license filing that names a long-duration orbital mission for Starship. That's the first vehicle of the demo pair. The day that application drops, the clock actually starts.
And until that filing exists, optimistically scheduled for 2026 is just a very polite way of saying nobody knows. Okay, so here's what we walked through today. A demo that was supposed to wrap up by summer 2025 is still sitting there, unflown, with no launch date, and the entire Artemis downstream schedule is hostage to it.
14 tanker flights, 0 demos. That's the math. And congressional funding can't unlock a single HLS milestone payment until that propellant transfer actually happens.
Meanwhile, SpaceX is out here doing a $25 billion bond sale 11 days after their IPO. Blake's been watching that capital structure, and it raises real questions about where the company's attention is pointed.
The FAA license filing for a long-duration orbital Starship mission, that's the concrete signal. Watch for that.
If this episode helped you track why Artemis keeps slipping, share it with someone who's still fuzzy on the moon program. Subscribe wherever you listen. It genuinely helps.
Thanks for being here. We'll be back next week to see if any of our predictions age well.
They never do. See you then.